Welcome back, hi. This is Lingo, Lingo 1, the previous game. So I'm going to give you a tour of a project that I was working on when it became clear that Lingo 2 was going to be coming out very soon, and just sort of a lot of work on stuff for DLC for Lingo 1 came to a screeching halt because we wanted to know, do we need to move to Lingo 2? What is it going to be like? What is it going to let us do? So now we've played it, now we know what it is, and now we get to figure out the new question of what are we going to do with ourselves? Are we going to continue producing content or what? So this is the opening room of the Strawberry tutorial. It's undergone some name changes, and it's a continuation of something called the Lingonberry tutorial. And yes, that misspelling is deliberate. The Lingonberry tutorial was created to support the Lingonberry Jam, a game jam for map production in Lingo. People came up with the question, do I have to use only mechanics that appeared in the original game, or can I use some of the already established new mechanics that players and fans had created? And the person who was responsible for organizing the first Lingonberry Jam came up with a rule that said, okay, if the mechanic in question has been used 3 times by 3 different authors, even if it's like it's used in 4 maps and 2 of them are by the same person, but another one is by 2 people, that counts as 2 separate authors. As long as you've got 3 and 3, it's jam legal, which is why the Strawberry tutorial, because that clearly has 3 R's in that word. There are only 3 R's in that word. I know, ChatGPT told me so. That opened the door here that lets me jump down into the spiral. And so this is sort of keeping track of what other DLC maps have been made. So the very first one was something called Duolingo. And so if I open up this, then it shows me vanilla, which means it doesn't have any new mechanics, just stuff that appears in the original base game. And it was Duolingo, which is a map that I heartily recommend if you have played Lingo, but haven't dived into any of the DLC stuff. They got it right from the very beginning. There was no growing pains. Duolingo is one of the best maps out there. I absolutely recommend it. The second map was something called Highland by the author Leaving Leaves. But the thing about that one was they introduced 2 new mechanics that weren't part of the original game. They had plus prompts and arrow prompts. So those appear there. So this is my way of keeping track of what maps had what things in them. Because when we decided what things were going to be available for the first game jam, and this is right over here, this is Lingonberry Jam 1, Perceiving is Deceiving, the 8 things that you see in this archway were considered legal. Blue major checkers, white and black checkers, and the colors cyan, tea green, plum, cobalt, pink, and salmon. That's it. Anything else, if you wanted to introduce something, you could, but you would have to tutorialize it in the limited space that you had, and then you only had 25 panels that you could put into your space in order to make puzzles with them. So if you wanted to create a new mechanic, then tutorializing it would take from your precious 25 panels. So a lot of people didn't bother doing that. Let's take a look at what's going on with this thing. So what is this thing meant to do? So it sort of spirals out, showing the history of all of the DLC. So we're going to take a look at this one, which is Greenland by Chris Suvi, who is in fact the same person who did Duolingo. Greenland does introduce a new mechanic. It changes height rules, which I'm not going to explain what that means. And it adds something called a reverse panel. So this was a panel. The white thing on top was the prompt. The green thing on the bottom was the thing I'm supposed to type in. If you watched Lingo 2, you're familiar with this. You also saw that there were some things in Lingo where the prompt was on the top and the answer was on the bottom, but occasionally you had the prompt on the bottom and the answer on the top. The original base game did not have this thing. It was Chris Suvi who decided to recode the panel so that it could be upside down and backwards. So that was a reverse panel. And then people liked it so much that Isley decided to do it. So we're going to open map number 6, and we see right there, yep, reverse panels also appear there. Because it's not the originating map, there's a thing here that says number 5 is the originating map for this. And then I think it's puzzle number 18. Map number 14, which is called 420 by Quartz 14, that also has reverse panels. And it is, in fact, the only new mechanic that 420 introduces. And you may recall that this thing did not appear on the list of things that were jam legal for the Lingonberry Jam, which is up in like the 40s, I think is where it is in the list of maps. So we relied on our collective memory to know what was jam legal, what had appeared in 3 maps by 3 different authors, rather than properly sitting down and working it all out. So, in fact, reverse panels are the first non-canon, non-vanilla mechanic to become jam legal, but nobody noticed it because they're just too simple. But in here, we catch all that kind of stuff. So, when that happens, one of these appears, and it's a yellow box hovering in the air with space inside it. And so if I stand underneath the yellow box and I go boop and I jump, then it takes me in here to a little room that talks about reverse panels and credits them to Chris Suvi, the person who invented them. What type of panel? Reverse panels. So that's the answer to this. And a door opens, and it's going to take me in here, and it's going to give me a few puzzles. And so I need a word that is a response to trombone, and that is oboe. I need a word that is a response to strawberry, and that is lingonberry. And then on the other side of the room, we have our reverse panels, where, yeah, that puzzle also works if I tell you the second half and you need to supply me the first half. And this. And now I've solved all the puzzles in this area, and so I come out here and it gives me a reverse panel complete. So this is the other more useful part of the map. So there are 4 halls currently for things. This is the presentations hall. And so all the ways of changing the way that a block appears are on here. Across the way are the actual new colors that people have created, and this thing's getting longer and longer. And I ran out of ceiling because I didn't bother putting it on, and I couldn't tell you why. And then up this way, we have modifiers and checkers. So modifiers are things you stick on a block. So question marks, squiggles, and dots. And then checkers are like so, where you have checkering happening. And so far, I have solved 11 puzzles. Go me. And this way leads you back to the spiral again. Baboo. So, this is what I was working on when Lingo 2 came out. And this was meant to update the Lingonberry tutorial, which was meant to be there because, wow, if you actually needed to solve all these things in order to know a mechanic that appeared in a bunch of maps and was sort of expected to be common knowledge, acquiring that common knowledge is probably going to be irritating and annoying and is going to send you to lots of different maps and make you solve hundreds of puzzles in order to just learn how these very specific things work so you can solve the map you actually wanted to solve. So, yeah, this is meant to sort of streamline the process of finding out what these mechanics mean. And it is the spiral. It moves us in a slowly widening spiral by adding these stripes to the ground. So where I'm standing right now, there is a wide white stripe and there is a narrow blue stripe. So this is at the corner of white and blue, and the thing that I'm standing in front of that occupies this address is also white over blue. White in the upper left corner, blue in the upper right corner. And so, yeah, if you needed to find something, it's there. Next to the door into these things is something that tells you what 3 maps were responsible for making this jam legal. So we saw earlier that was 5, 6, and 14. And if you needed to find those things to see what map was that, the coordinates for them, red, black, red, white, and blue, black, they're provided for you. So you can find them again in the spiral. So the way that I've been approaching this project is literally to solve every map in existence. The trouble is, there's now like 300 of them, or close to. We're getting up there. And how far have I gotten through this project? I mean, even just to build things. Yeah, I've only gotten up to 81, and then I run out of stuff because all of this stuff has yet to actually be looked at, figured out, anything. It's a project that I am never, ever going to really finish, especially not as a solo person. I do have a couple of tools that let me solve some of the nastier things fairly automatically, just to see, is there anything hidden here that I should know about and include in the documentation for what do we do in our DLC? But there are some things that are just, no, actually, I do want to solve that. So if I go back, the one that I was working on when the announcement for Lingo 2 came out was this one called Chaos Theory, which was a collaboration between 12 different authors and was actually a precursor to the idea of the Lingonberry Jam. But I partially finished that one. The next one that is unsolved is the Lingonberry Jam itself with those 8 things. And then beyond that, derivatives, which I do have to figure out whether or not it actually hides some stuff that's actually new. Forward is the first one that I looked at and went, yeah, I actually do want to solve that one. I want to solve it straight. So one thing that I might do with this slot in rotation in this channel is to go through some of the DLC stuff for level 1 and see if that's interesting to people. So I kind of leave this out here. I could do a bunch of things. I could show you other things other than this map that I've made and that have actually been published. I can show you DLC content from Lingo Level 1, and I can also show you the process for constructing maps, because I've done a few of them. And one of the things that I've been thinking of maybe doing is taking the museum, which I may have passed now. There it is, the museum, which was really my first creation. And I've learned a lot about how to make maps since. And I look at the museum and I go, there are so many things that are there that I should have done way better than I did. So redoing this is something that I've always wished I could do. Also, the way that you enter answers is just super annoying. And I've come up with a better system that is going to be considerably less annoying. But then, this is an old map. Does anybody care anymore? So I leave this in your hands. Do you want me to show you how to construct a map, bearing in mind that I am not a coder and therefore I'm doing this probably in a very sloppy way? Do you want to see some of the Lingo 1 DLC content? And do you want to see other maps that I've already completed? Let me know in the comments, and I will see what I can do to make some stuff for you. Yeah, that'll do it for this. It's very short. But hopefully it will lead to some interesting things. I will see you in the next video, and goodbye.